I thought I was getting an incredible deal on a designer sectional sofa. What I got instead was a stage trap in an empty townhouse, 3 men blocking my exits, and the terrifying realization that I might never leave alive. This is how a $200 Craigslist ad almost became my last transaction. My name is Ken Pierce, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. I am 29 years old, single, and work as a graphic designer for a marketing firm downtown. When I moved into my new apartment last spring, I needed furniture, badly. The place was nice, hardwood floors, big windows, great natural light, but it was completely empty. I had been sleeping on an air mattress for 3 weeks, and eating takeout sitting on the floor was getting old fast. The biggest missing piece was a couch. Not just any couch. I wanted a sectional, something big and comfortable where I could stretch out after work, watch movies, maybe have friends over without everyone sitting on folding chairs. New sectionals cost thousands of dollars. Even the cheap ones at IKEA were running close to $1,500. That was way outside my budget. So I did what any broke millennial would do. I went to Craigslist. I spent hours scrolling through listings. Most were either overpriced, ugly, or clearly beat to hell. Stained fabric, sagging cushions, the kind of furniture that screamed college dorm dumpster dive. But then I found it. Bryce Halden's sectional sofa. Barely used, moving sale, $200. I clicked on the listing. The photos showed a gorgeous charcoal gray sectional, clean lines, modern design. The fabric looked pristine, no visible wear, no stains. It was exactly what I wanted. $200 seemed too good to be true. Bryce Halden was a high-end furniture brand. Their sectionals retailed for over $3,000. I sent a message immediately. "Hi, is this still available?" The response came back within minutes. "Yes, cash only. Can you pick it up this weekend?" We exchanged a few more messages. The seller's name was Marcus. He said he was moving out of state for a job and needed to get rid of furniture quickly. He could not take it with him. "Where are you located?" I asked. "Lafayette, townhouse off Highway 287. I can send you the address." Lafayette was about 20 minutes from Boulder. Close enough. "That works," I typed back. "What time?" "Saturday afternoon. 3 p.m. work for you?" Perfect. Saturday came. I borrowed my friend Tyler's pickup truck. He couldn't come with me because he had to work, but he said I could keep it all day as long as I filled the tank. I drove out to Lafayette around 2:45. The address Marcus gave me was in a newer development. Rows of identical townhouses lined the streets. Neat lawns, clean sidewalks. Everything looked normal. I pulled up to the address, Unit 47. The townhouse looked empty. No cars in the driveway, no signs of life. The blinds were drawn. I texted Marcus, "I'm here." "Come to the side door. It's unlocked. I'm upstairs finishing packing. Couch is in the living room." That felt a little odd. Why would he leave the door unlocked? Why not come down and meet me? But I told myself I was overthinking it. People do weird things when they're moving. I walked up to the side door and pushed it open. It creaked loudly. The inside was dark. No lights on. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I stepped inside. The entryway opened into a living room. And there it was, the sectional, sitting in the middle of the empty room. It looked even better in person. I walked over to inspect it, ran my hand across the fabric. No tears, no stains. It was perfect. "Marcus?" I called out again. Still no answer. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, coming from the hallway behind me. I turned around. A man stepped out from the shadows. He was not Marcus, at least not the Marcus I had imagined. He was big, over 6 feet, thick build, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. His face was hard, emotionless. "You got the cash?" he asked. My stomach tightened. "Yeah, 200, right?" He nodded slowly. "Let me see it first." I hesitated. Something felt wrong. But I pulled out my wallet and showed him the bills. He didn't take them. Instead, he whistled. 2 more men emerged from the hallway. Both big, both wearing hoodies. They spread out, blocking the exits. My heart pounded. What is this? The first man stepped closer. "Give me the wallet." "I thought we were here for the couch," I said. "Change of plans," he said coldly. "Wallet, phone, keys, now." I looked at the exits. Both were blocked. The front door was behind them. The side door I came through was too far. I made a split-second decision. I threw my wallet at the first man's face and ran. I bolted toward the kitchen, hoping there was a back door. Behind me, I heard shouting, footsteps pounding. I found the back door, locked. I fumbled with the deadbolt. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn it. One of the men grabbed my shoulder. I spun around and shoved him as hard as I could. He stumbled backward. The deadbolt clicked. I yanked the door open and ran outside. I sprinted across the backyard, jumped the fence, and didn't stop running until I reached a busy street 2 blocks away. I flagged down a car. A woman stopped. I must have looked insane, sweating, out of breath, terrified. "Please," I gasped, "call the police." She did. Officers arrived within minutes. I told them everything, gave them the address, showed them the messages. When the police went to the townhouse, it was empty. No couch, no men, nothing. The listing had been deleted. Marcus's phone number was disconnected. The officer told me I was lucky. "We have had reports of similar setups," he said. "People use furniture listings to lure victims to empty houses. Usually, it ends with robbery, sometimes worse." I got Tyler's truck back, filled the tank like I promised, but I never told him how close I came to not coming back at all. I bought a couch from IKEA the next week, paid full price, and I deleted my Craigslist account for good. I was just trying to find my missing dog. A kind stranger on Craigslist said he found him and offered to return him to me. But when I arrived at his house, there was no dog waiting, only a basement door, a stranger's cold smile, and the realization that I had walked straight into a predator's trap. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 32 years old and live in Portland, Oregon. This happened 3 years ago, but I still think about it every single day. I had a Jack Russell Terrier named Oscar. He was small, energetic, and had more personality than most people I knew. I loved that dog more than anything. One afternoon, I let Oscar out in the backyard like I always did. I was inside making lunch. When I called him back in 20 minutes later, he was gone. The gate was open. I always kept it latched, but somehow it had come undone. Oscar must have squeezed through and run off. I panicked. I ran through the neighborhood calling his name, knocked on doors, asked neighbors if they had seen him. Nothing. By evening, I was desperate. I made flyers with Oscar's photo and my phone number. posted them on every telephone pole within a mile radius. I also posted on Craigslist, Nextdoor, and every lost pet Facebook group I could find. 2 days passed. No sign of Oscar. No calls. I barely slept. I kept imagining him scared, alone, hungry. Then, on the 3rd day, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Hi, is this Sarah? A man's voice asked. Yes, who is this? My name is Derek. I think I found your dog. My heart leaped. You did? Where? He was wandering around my neighborhood. No collar, but he matches the description on your flyer. Small, brown and white, really energetic. That is him. That is Oscar. Where are you? I can come get him right now. Derek gave me an address. It was about 15 minutes away in a quieter part of town. He is at my house, Derek said. I did not want to leave him outside in case he ran off again. Come by anytime. I grabbed my keys and drove straight there. The address led me to an older house on a dead-end street. The yard was overgrown. The paint was peeling. It looked run down, but I did not care. All I cared about was getting Oscar back. I knocked on the door. A man in his 40s answered. Average height, thin build. He smiled warmly. Sarah? He asked. Yes, you are Derek? That is me. Come on in. Your dog is downstairs. I stepped inside. The house was dim, curtains drawn. It smelled musty, like old wood and damp carpet. Downstairs? I asked. Yeah, I put him in the basement so he wouldn't run out when I opened the door. Follow me. He led me through the kitchen to a door at the back of the house. He opened it. A dark staircase led down into the basement. He's down there? I asked, hesitating. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be right behind you. Something in my gut screamed at me to stop, but I wanted Oscar back so badly. I took one step down, then another. Halfway down the stairs, I stopped. Oscar? I called out. No barking, no sound. I turned around. Derek was standing at the top of the stairs. He was not smiling anymore. Where is my dog? I asked, my voice shaking. He did not answer. Instead, he reached for the door handle. I realized what was happening. I bolted back up the stairs. He tried to close the door, but I shoved it open with all my strength. It hit him in the face. He stumbled backward. I ran. Through the kitchen, out the front door. I did not stop until I was in my car. I locked the doors, started the engine, and drove away as fast as I could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I pulled over 2 blocks away and called 911. The police went to the house. Derek was gone. But what they found in the basement made my blood run cold. Restraints, chains bolted to the wall, a mattress on the floor, evidence of other victims. The officer told me Derek was a known predator. He had been using lost pet ads to lure women to his house. You are very lucky, the officer said. Most people do not make it back out. I never found Oscar. To this day, I don't know what happened to him. I like to think someone kind took him in and gave him a good home. But I will never forget how close I came to becoming another missing person. All because I trusted a stranger who said he found my dog. I never thought I would be the type of person to browse Craigslist personals, but back then, in 2014, I was lonely in a way that felt heavy. My name is Evan Mercer, and at the time, I had just moved to Dayton, Ohio for a new job. I did not know anyone in the city. My days were spent in a bland office, and my nights in a small, dimly lit one-bedroom apartment where the silence pressed on me like a weight. After a few weeks, I realized I needed to put myself out there somehow. Bars were not my thing, and online dating apps always felt like a meat market. People swiping left and right without even reading what you wrote. Craigslist, though, it seemed old-fashioned in a weird way, like posting a flyer on a corkboard. People who used it had to actually type something out, which made it feel a little more genuine. That is how I found Marcus's ad. It was simple, almost awkward, which made it stand out from the usual sleazy stuff. Looking for someone to grab a drink with, laugh a little, and see where it goes. Nothing complicated, just two people enjoying a night out. Send me an email if you are interested. No shirtless selfies, no long demands, just a few lines that felt human. I stared at the ad for a long while before drafting a reply. I told him I was new in town, that I worked in accounting, and that I liked bad jokes and cheap beer. Within an hour, I got a response. His writing style was casual but warm. He cracked a joke about accountants being spreadsheets with legs that actually made me laugh out loud. We traded emails for the next week. He was funny, thoughtful, a little rough around the edges in the way he phrased things, but never unkind. I felt safe enough to meet him. We picked Ollie's Pub, a noisy Irish-style bar near downtown. The Friday crowd was spilling out onto the sidewalk, music vibrating through the walls. But once inside, we managed to find a quieter booth near the back. When Marcus walked in, he did not look like the type I usually went for. Tall, broad shoulders, a little scruffy with messy dark hair. But the moment he smiled, I relaxed. He was magnetic in person. "Evan?" he asked, sliding into the booth. "Yeah, you must be Marcus." "Good guess," he said with a grin. From there, the conversation flowed. He asked questions, listened closely, and had a way of leaning forward when I spoke that made me feel like the only person in the room. I caught myself laughing more than I had in months. "You are way easier to talk to than I expected," I admitted after my second beer. "Same," he said. "Most people online either sound fake or like they are trying too hard. You are just normal, in a good way." The night stretched on. At one point, he suggested we head to a nearby pool hall just to keep the night alive. "Come on," he urged. "I will even let you win a game." I laughed. "You are on, but I'm driving, so don't try anything funny." He held up his hands in mock surrender. Scout's honor. The pool hall was dim, lit with neon signs and the clack of billiard balls. We ordered another round and played a few games. To my surprise, I was winning, which made him groan dramatically. "You are hustling me," he accused, leaning on his cue stick. "I swear I am not," I said, laughing. That is when his phone buzzed. It sat on the edge of the table, screen lighting up. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. His smile faded, his shoulders tensed. I noticed. "Bad news?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sighed, set the cue down, and rubbed his hands over his face. "Look," he finally said, his tone suddenly heavy. "Okay," I said, a knot forming in my stomach. "I just got out of prison," he said flatly. "Couple months ago. I'm a convicted felon." I blinked, trying to process. For what? Stupid stuff when I was younger. Fighting, breaking and entering, drugs. I've been trying to start fresh. He met my eyes. "I didn't want to hide it from you, but I also didn't want to scare you off before you even knew me." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to get up and leave, but another part of me, maybe the part that hated confrontation, just sat there frozen. "And one more thing," he added, almost casually. "I live with my girlfriend right now. It's not serious, more of a situation until I get on my feet." My throat went dry. "Wait, you live with your girlfriend?" "Yeah, but it's not what you think." He gestured to the phone on the table. "That text just now, it's from her. She saw us at the bar earlier." My blood ran cold. "She was there?" "Yeah, guess she followed me." He said it like it was no big deal, but his jaw was tight. I wanted out. Everything about the night had flipped from fun to suffocating. But I had driven us here. I couldn't just leave him stranded. "Let us get you back to your car," I said, forcing calm into my voice. The silence in my car was thick at first. He sat slouched in the passenger seat, staring out the window. Then, without warning, he started to cry. At first it was quiet, just sniffling. Then it grew louder, jagged, until he was sobbing. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I screw everything up. I ruin everything good." I gripped the wheel tighter. "Marcus, it's fine. We'll just get you back to your car." "No, it's not fine." He slammed his fist against his thigh. "You don't understand. I try to be better, and I keep messing up. She's going to leave me. Everyone leaves me." I didn't know what to say. My heart raced, my mind spiraling. Then his hand shut out and grabbed the car door handle. "What are you doing?" I shouted. "I can't do this," he sobbed, tugging at the handle. "Marcus, stop. We're on the goddamn highway." I hit the child lock so fast my hands shook. My stomach churned with panic. If he opened that door, both of us were dead. "Please, just sit back," I begged, my voice cracking. "We're almost there. Just hold on." He slumped back, still sobbing, his words slurred and broken. I kept my eyes on the road, praying he wouldn't lunge again. The 10-minute drive felt like an hour. When we finally pulled into the bar's parking lot, I threw the car in park. "There," I said sharply, "your car is right there." He wiped his face, muttered something I couldn't make out, and stumbled out of my car. I didn't wait. I sped off, hands trembling, heart pounding. I thought that was the end of it. But 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "This is Anna. I'm Marcus's girlfriend. I know you saw him the other night." Attached were photos of her face. Bruised, swollen, her lips split open. My stomach dropped. She told me he had beaten her after confronting him about me. She wrote paragraph after paragraph detailing how he had isolated her, controlled her, and hurt her for years. I felt sick. The man who made me laugh, who leaned forward like he cared about every word I said, he was a violent monster behind closed doors. I kept messaging with Anna, partly out of guilt, partly because I couldn't believe what I had almost stepped into. She told me stories that left me trembling. Nights where he had locked her in the bedroom. Times when he had broken her phone so she couldn't call anyone. The way he always cried and begged after hitting her. Eventually, she left him. She moved in with her sister, filed for a restraining order. And strangely, through those long, heavy conversations, we became friends. Sometimes I think about that night, about how easily it could have been me, about how quickly someone can shift from charming to terrifying. It changed me. I don't browse Craigslist anymore. I don't ignore red flags. And I have learned that sometimes the scariest monsters are not hiding in the dark. They're sitting across from you at a bar, making you laugh, making you feel seen, until the mask slips. That night could have ended so much worse, and I will never forget it.
I thought I was getting an incredible deal on a PlayStation 3 for $120. What I didn't know was that I was walking into an ambush at an abandoned mall parking lot where two armed men were waiting to do more than just rob me. The moment I saw the gun, I realized this wasn't about money, it was about survival. I was 22 when this happened, and sometimes I think about how close I came to not being here at all. Back then, I was still living with my parents in a small house on the outskirts of Ashbrook, a cold little town tucked up against the edge of the Midwest. Winters there were brutal, roads slick with ice, power flickering out during storms, and long weeks of isolation when snow piled up against the doors. I did not have much going for me at the time. I was working part-time at a shipping warehouse, barely scraping together enough money to pay for gas and the few bills my parents asked me to help cover. Video games had always been my escape. I grew up on them ever since my dad brought home our first clunky desktop computer and let me mess around on MS Paint. My PlayStation 3 was my lifeline during those nights when I did not want to think about how empty my life felt. But then, my little cousin visited for Christmas break. He was 8, careless in that way only kids can be. One slip of his hand, one bottle of Mountain Dew tipping over on my console. And just like that, it was fried, gone. I was furious, but more than that, I was empty. Suddenly, the one thing that got me through long shifts and cold nights was just a dead hunk of plastic. That is how I ended up on Craigslist. It was December, a few days before New Year's. Ashbrook was buried under a thick blanket of snow. I remember sitting on my bed, scrolling through the for sale section, half distracted, half desperate. Most listings were overpriced or outright scams. Then I saw it. PlayStation 3, $120, good condition, need gone as soon as possible. The description was short. Works fine, comes with one controller, just need the money quick, first come, first serve. Something about it hooked me. It was simple, no fluff, no attempt at sounding slick. The price was low, but not absurdly low. Just enough to make me think the guy might really need quick cash. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the reply button. My parents had always warned me about Craigslist, about shady deals in parking lots and people who were not what they claimed to be. But I told myself I would be smart. I would see the PlayStation first. If it worked, I would hand over the money. If not, I would leave. Easy. So I texted the number. The reply came almost instantly. Hey, yeah, I still have it. You want to meet tonight? Depends. Where? Old Hillside Mall, Kmart side, around 8. Bring cash, I don't want to sit freezing all night. The Hillside Mall. That place had been abandoned for years. Half the stores were boarded up, graffiti painted across the walls. Parking lot cracked with weeds and empty except for kids who sometimes hung out there at night. It was the kind of place you would pass by and think, man, that's depressing. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I did not want to back out, not after convincing myself this was my chance. Fine, 8 works. You'll let me see it before I pay, right? Of course, I'm not a scammer, LOL. The lol was supposed to put me at ease. It did not. By the time night rolled in, the streets were half buried in ice. My parents were sitting in the living room watching television with a fire burning in the fireplace. I told them I was going to grab food. My dad offered me a 20 and said, "Don't be out too late, roads are nasty." I pocketed the money, feeling a sharp stab of guilt for lying. But I did not want to hear the lecture. The drive out to Hillside Mall was silent, except for the heater rattling in my beat-up Honda Civic. The streets were deserted, snowflakes swirling in the headlights. Every block I passed felt emptier than the last. When I turned into the mall lot,
It was like stepping into another world. The place was dead. A vast expanse of cracked asphalt stretched into the darkness. The old Kmart sign looming overhead, its letters half fallen and stained. And there, at the far end of the lot, sat a dark car with its headlights off. I slowed, heart thudding in my chest. Someone was leaning against the driver's side door, a man in a hoodie. He raised a hand when he saw me, casual, like this was the most normal thing in the world. I parked a good 10 feet away, engine idling, every nerve in my body telling me to drive off. But then he called out, "You got the cash?" His tone was relaxed, almost bored. I got out, trying to hide my nerves. "Yeah, you got the PlayStation?" He jerked his chin toward the back seat. "Right there, check it out." I walked closer, crunch of snow under my boots. The car was older, a beat-up Ford sedan with tinted windows. When I pulled open the back door, I saw a box sitting on the seat. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a console, but it looked wrong. Dusty, scuffed, cables tangled like it had been sitting in someone's garage for years. "This isn't a PS3, I said, frowning. Before I could step back, I felt movement behind me. The man shifted closer, too close. When I turned, he was pulling something from his waistband, a gun. His voice was low, steady. "Hand over the money, now." My stomach dropped. The night air froze in my throat. I could barely breathe. Cash? He snapped. "Don't make this harder." My hands shook as I reached into my pocket. That's when I noticed something else. Through the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the driver's seat. Another figure, crouched low, watching me. This was not just a ripoff. It was a setup. And the worst part? I had this gut-deep feeling they were not going to let me just hand over the cash and walk away. I tossed the envelope into the back seat, hoping that would be enough. But the man did not step back. He did not look satisfied. His eyes stayed on me, cold and calculating. That was the moment instinct took over. I spun, bolted toward my car. A crack split the night. The ground kicked up near my feet. A gunshot. I nearly tripped but kept running, lungs burning, fingers fumbling at the door handle. Another shot rang out, sharper, shattering glass. My rear window exploded into shards. I dove into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and turned the key with shaking hands. The engine roared, tires screeching as I floored it out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, I saw them scrambling into their car, headlights flaring to life. My heart nearly stopped. They were following me. The roads were slick, my car fishtailing as I tore through the snowy streets. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. All I know was that if they caught up, I was dead. I cut through side streets, blowing past stop signs, praying no other cars were out. Their headlights followed for what felt like forever, closing in whenever I slowed. Finally, I swung hard onto a narrow lane behind the old train station, a shortcut I had taken 100 times. Their car swerved, struggling to keep up on the ice. For one terrifying moment, I thought they would gain on me, but then their headlights vanished. Either they had spun out or given up. I didn't stop to check. I drove straight home, tires crunching into my parents' driveway, chest heaving. Inside, I locked every door, drew every curtain, and sat in the dark, staring at the shattered glass across my back seat. My parents thought I had just gone for food, but in reality, I had barely escaped with my life. And the thought that haunted me most was not the money I lost. It was this. They had not wanted $100. They wanted me. And if I had not trusted my gut, had not run when I did, I do not think I would be here to tell you this story.
What started as a simple Craigslist steal for a 55-inch TV turned into the most terrifying night of my life. I thought I was meeting a friendly seller named Jenna to pick up a bargain. Instead, I walked straight into a trap that could have cost me everything. This is how a routine purchase became a fight for survival. I was working the closing shift at the hardware store when I came across the Craigslist ad. It was late September, chilly, and already dark by 6. The place was dead quiet. Just me up front and Diego finishing up his section in the garden center. We had maybe 20 minutes until lockup, and I was killing time the way I always did, leaning against the customer service counter, glued to my phone. Back then, Craigslist was like a weird little habit I couldn't kick. I didn't always buy stuff, but scrolling through the listings had this odd satisfaction to it. You'd get everything: power tools, broken down cars, barely used couches, and free junk people just wanted out of their garages. I'd once scored a practically new office chair for nothing and a Keurig that worked perfectly for $10. But you had to stay sharp. Everyone said that. Everyone had heard the horror stories: sketchy meetups, missing people, robberies. But I'd never had a problem, not once. I think that's why I didn't think twice this time. The ad was for a 55-inch Samsung TV, barely used, $120. It wasn't suspiciously cheap, just low enough to feel like a good deal. The photos looked legit. They'd clearly been taken in someone's actual living room. You could see the edges of a gray sectional, a wooden coffee table, even a cat tree tucked beside the entertainment unit. It felt real, not some warehouse or shady stock photo repost. The seller's name was Jenna. The ad said she was moving and needed to sell quickly. I tapped reply and typed out a quick message. "Hey, if this is still available, I'm interested. I can pick it up tomorrow evening." She responded maybe an hour later. "Hi, yes, it's still available. Can you come by around 7? I'll be home then." That smiley face made it feel normal, friendly even. I asked for the address and she sent it right away. 248 Birch Hollow Drive in a neighborhood called Brookage. I Googled it. The house was real, 10 minutes from where I lived in Spring Haven. The street view showed a quiet suburban cul-de-sac, brick houses, trimmed hedges, tree-lined sidewalks. Totally average, totally safe. I replied, "Great, I'll text you when I'm close." She sent back, "Sounds good." The next day, I clocked out a little before 6, swung by the ATM, and pulled out $140 just in case she wanted to round up or had other stuff for sale. I remember feeling kinda hyped. I'd been meaning to upgrade my bedroom TV for months, and this felt like scoring a deal. It didn't even cross my mind to tell anyone where I was going. That part sticks with me. It was just after sunset when I pulled on to Birch Hollow. The street looked exactly like it did online: quiet, calm, warm porch lights glowing. Halloween decorations were starting to pop up on some lawns: fake cobwebs, plastic skeletons, a pumpkin or two. I found 248 easily. Beige ranch-style house, red front door. No car in the driveway. The porch light was on. It looked lived in. Safe. I parked along the curb and sent her a text. "Hey, I'm here." Within seconds, the front door opened. A woman stepped out onto the porch. Medium height, dark brown hair in a loose bun, jeans and a gray hoodie. She looked normal. Tired maybe, but normal. "You must be Eva?" she asked, stepping forward. "Yeah," I said, returning the smile, trying not to sound nervous. She nodded. "Jenna, come on in. Sorry for the mess, we're still packing." I followed her inside. The entryway led straight into the living room. Boxes everywhere. A laundry basket overflowing with cords and remote controls sat near the couch. Some kitchen stuff was half-packed in bins.
It was cluttered, but not in a suspicious way, just typical moving chaos. She shut the door behind us. Not locked, just a soft click as it closed. "TV's in my bedroom," she said, already walking toward the hallway. "Cool," I replied, glancing around. "Looks like you're almost ready to go." She gave a tired laugh. I wish. Still gotta tackle the garage. Not looking forward to that." We walked down a narrow hallway. The walls were mostly bare, except for a lone mirror and a crooked photo frame. Beige carpet, dim lighting. There was a door at the end of the hall, already open. "It's in there," she said, motioning toward it. I stepped inside. No TV, no furniture, nothing. The room was completely empty. No bed, no nightstand, just beige carpet and 4 plain walls. Not even a scuff mark or nail hole. The kind of emptiness that feels unnatural, like it had been scrubbed clean of any trace of life. I stood there frozen for half a second, trying to make sense of it. Then the door slammed shut behind me, hard. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. A bolt clicked, loud, deliberate. My heart jumped into my throat. "Jenna," I said, spinning around. My voice came out too soft. No answer. I crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed the handle. Locked. I knocked, trying to sound calm. "Hey, Jenna. Hello?" Still nothing. I knocked again, harder this time, fists hitting wood. "Jenna?" The silence that followed was too complete. No footsteps, no muffled reply, just stillness pressing in on all sides. That's when the panic really started. It began in my chest, a tight squeezing, and then spread down my arms and legs like ice water. "This isn't funny," I shouted, slamming my pound against the door. "Open the door! What the hell is this?" I fumbled my phone out of my pocket, hands shaking, and stared at the screen. No signal, no bars, no Wi-Fi, just that mocking little circle spinning in the corner. I backed away from the door, heart pounding. The quiet had changed. It wasn't just silence, it was absence. No cars passing, no footsteps upstairs, no hum of a fridge. Just a thick, unnatural stillness. I turned to the window and yanked the blinds up. The glass was filthy, streaked with grime and fogged from the inside. I shoved both hands under the frame and pushed, but it didn't budge. It felt sealed, painted shut maybe, or locked from outside. My breathing was getting shallow. I went back to the door and pounded with both fists until my knuckles burned. I screamed. Then I heard them. Voices. Muffled, low. A woman and a man. Not directly outside the door, somewhere nearby, maybe the living room. I pressed my ear to the wood. I could make out her voice, Jenna, and a deeper one, him. I couldn't tell what they were saying, just the rhythm of conversation. Calm, too calm. "Hello," I screamed. "Let me out." No response. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? 20? I kept trying the handle, pacing, checking the window again and again. I scanned the corners of vents, anything. My skin was damp with sweat. My thoughts were spiraling. Was this a robbery? A setup? Were they waiting for someone else to arrive? Then I remembered the alarm app on my phone. Even with no signal, that still worked. I opened it, scrolled past the gentle ones until I found the loudest, most obnoxious siren I had, some high-pitched emergency alert tone. I cranked the volume all the way and hit play. The shriek filled the room instantly, bouncing off the bare walls like a fire drill. I placed the phone on the far side of the room, screen glowing, alarm blaring, and I positioned myself behind the door, holding my breath, pulse thudding in my ears. 30 seconds later, I heard them. Footsteps, heavy, approaching. The door creaked open. A man stepped into the room, tall, at least 6'2", broad shoulders, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. He turned toward the alarm, eyes narrowing, distracted for just a second. I moved. I lunged from behind the door and ran, shoving past him. His arm shot out, fingers grazing my jacket, but I twisted hard and broke free, adrenaline surging like fire in my veins. "Hey!" he shouted. I sprinted down the hallway. Jenna appeared in the living room, eyes wide. She lunged, but I jerked sideways and kept going. I hit the front door at full speed and flung it open. It banged against the wall. As I crossed the threshold, I felt her hand clamp around my wrist, cold, tight, but I ripped myself free and kept running. I dove into my car,
Yanked the door shut, and locked it in one motion. My hands fumbled the keys, but somehow I got the engine started. Tires squealed as I tore away from the curb, breath ragged, limbs shaking so hard I could barely steer. I drove 5 minutes, barely blinking, until I saw a gas station and pulled in, screeching to a halt. I stumbled inside. The guy behind the counter stared at me like I'd just walked out of a war zone. "Call the police," I gasped. "Please, I was just trapped in a house. Someone tried to grab me." The cops arrived within 15 minutes. I gave them everything. Jenna's name, the address, what they looked like, what happened. We went back to the house. It was dark now. Porch light off, curtains drawn. The door was locked. They knocked. No one answered. We checked the back. Nothing. No movement, no voices. Then an officer called over. He'd found something 2 blocks away in the gutter. My phone. It had been thrown. Screen cracked. Alarm still buzzing faintly. That's when they told me something that made my stomach drop. The house? It was vacant. The owner lived out of town, hadn't been there in weeks. The last tenant moved out a month ago. It had been listed for sale ever since. Whoever Jenna and the man were, they didn't live there. The Craigslist ad was gone by morning. Deleted. No trace. They never found them. The police said I was lucky, incredibly lucky. They think it was a setup, some kind of trap, maybe for robbery, maybe something worse. I try not to think too hard about what could have happened if I'd hesitated, if I hadn't set off that alarm, if I hadn't run. I deleted the Craigslist app the next day. Haven't used it since, and I never meet anyone alone anymore. Now, whenever I drive through a quiet neighborhood, I glance at the houses, the porches, the windows, and I wonder who really lives there. Because monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they leave the porch light on and wait for you to come inside. I thought I was being careful, meeting in a public place, bringing my mom along, checking everything twice. But when I walked into that garage and saw the photos on that table, my blood ran cold. They were pictures of me, taken through my bedroom window, outside my house while I was sleeping. This stranger had been watching me for weeks, and I had just walked right into his trap. I've always been cautious about meeting strangers online, especially when money or expensive gear is involved. I guess it comes with the territory. I'm a woman in my late 20s, living alone in a medium-sized Texas city. I've read too many Craigslist horror stories and heard too many podcasts about Facebook Marketplace deals gone wrong. You think it won't happen to you, but I've learned the hard way that even when you follow all the rules,
things can still go sideways. I like to think I'm smart, vigilant. I never give out my home address. I only meet buyers during daylight in public, well-trafficked areas. I always send someone my location, sometimes even share my live GPS. But when you're selling something valuable, sometimes your control over the situation slips, even if you're careful. I was trying to sell my Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, a solid DSLR I'd used for years in my freelance photography work. That camera had seen everything from backyard weddings to freezing sunrise hikes. It wasn't just equipment to me, it was a piece of my life. But I'd finally upgraded, and it had been sitting untouched on a shelf, quietly collecting dust. It still worked like a dream, with only a few scuffs from wear. I figured I could get $1,200, maybe more if someone knew what they were buying. I didn't want to deal with shipping, too many risks. So I posted it on Facebook Marketplace. I uploaded sharp, high-resolution photos, wrote a clear, honest description, and laid down ground rules. Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, excellent condition, body only, $1,200, firm, serious buyers only, public meetup, daylight hours, cash only. I didn't think I'd get a bite so fast, but within 12 hours, my phone buzzed with a message. "Hey, is the camera still available?" I replied right away. "Yep, still available, in person only, cash only." Messages rolled in after that. Then this one. "Cool, when can we meet? I work nights, so I'm free late." I hesitated. Red flag. I replied, "I prefer daytime meetups, it's just safer. I get off at 10, can we meet then? Maybe the Oak Ridge Shopping Center lot, it's well lit, open 24/7. Oak Ridge, I knew it, about 15 minutes from my apartment. The place was busy during the day and still had some foot traffic at night. I'd done a couple of late pickups there before, not ideal, but not totally off limits either. I thought it through. The guy had been polite, consistent. I was the one selling. I couldn't afford to be too picky. "Okay, tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Let's meet by the entrance near the fountain. It's well lit and has security cameras." "Sounds good. I'm Mike. I'll be in a gray Honda Accord." "I'm Emma. I'll be in a black Mazda CX-5. Before heading out, I told Sarah, my best friend and unofficial emergency contact. We had a pact when it came to online sales. She didn't hesitate. "Text me when you get there, okay? And if something feels off, even a little, just leave. Don't second guess it." That night, I left at 10:15. Streets were quiet, but not empty. That eerie in-between stillness. I pulled into Oak Ridge and parked directly under the overhead light by the fountain, just like we agreed. The lot was mostly empty, only a few stragglers near a late-night diner and a glowing convenience store across the lot. I texted, "Here." Silence. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Finally, a reply at 10:40. "Sorry, got held up. Be there in 10. I sighed. Part of me wanted to leave, but I told myself this was just how selling worked. People ran late. I stayed in the car, scrolling through Instagram, one eye on the lot's back entrance. At 10:50, a gray Honda Accord pulled in from the rear entrance. It slowed and crept toward the lot, but didn't come to the fountain. It kept going and stopped near the loading dock, the darkest part of the lot. A chill ran through me. I texted, "You said by the fountain, right? I'm parked under the light." "Yeah, but it's too busy there. I'll come to you." But he didn't move. I stared across the parking lot. His car sat there, engine idling, windows tinted. No movement, no door opening, just waiting. I felt my hands go clammy as something in my gut twisted hard. I shot a quick text to Sarah. "He's parked near the loading dock, feels sketchy." Her reply was instant. "Leave now, don't get out of the car." I sat there in the driver's seat, hands hovering over the steering wheel, debating.
A part of me didn't want to seem paranoid or rude. I didn't want to lose the sale over something that might just be awkward timing or miscommunication. But something wasn't right. My stomach felt tight, my palms slick with sweat. Then, movement. Two figures stepped out from behind the gray Accord. Not one guy, two. Both wore dark hoodies, their hoods up, baseball caps pulled low over their eyes. The way they moved, slow, deliberate, immediately set off alarms in my head. One of them had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The other carried a bulky backpack. They weren't walking toward the fountain. They were walking toward me. My body reacted before my brain caught up. I started the car and hit the locks with a trembling hand. My thumb flew across the screen as I texted Sarah. There are two guys, not Mike alone. This feels wrong. I'm leaving now. I reversed out of the spot, tires crunching softly against the pavement. That's when I saw it. The Accord pulled out too. Slow at first, then accelerating, keeping its distance but definitely following. I tried to stay calm, telling myself maybe it was coincidence. Maybe they were just exiting the lot the same way. But as I turned onto the street, they turned too. No hesitation, no signal delay. I kept driving, trying to stay on main roads, well-lit ones, watching the car in my rearview mirror clinging to me like a shadow. Then, ahead, salvation. Flashing red and blue lights lit up the darkness like a beacon. A police cruiser was parked outside a 24-hour convenience store, its roof lights casting reflections onto the surrounding glass. I didn't even hesitate. I pulled in quickly behind the cruiser, high beams on. The Accord jerked to a stop at the end of the block. I saw its brake lights flare. Then the tires screeched as it spun into a U-turn and peeled off. My breath caught in my throat. The police car was empty, but it didn't matter. The sight of it had been enough. I sat there, muscles locked, fingers gripping the steering wheel, heart thudding so loudly I thought I might be sick. Then I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. My voice shook as soon as she picked up. I was right, they weren't alone. They followed me. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "Still near Oak Ridge, near that corner store with the police car." "Come here," she said immediately. "Just come straight here." I didn't need convincing. I pulled back onto the road and headed to Sarah's apartment, checking my mirrors every other second. That night, she made tea, wrapped me in a blanket, and sat with me while I tried to stop trembling. I barely slept. My mind replayed every second, every red flag I had pushed aside. The next morning, I blocked the number and deleted the listing. I knew reporting it wouldn't amount to much, but I still submitted the suspicious number in an exchange to Facebook Marketplace and filled out a tip on their reporting page. Then I called the non-emergency police line.
They took down my statement, along with the number and a description of the vehicle and the men, but made it clear unless there had been a direct threat or an actual crime, there wasn't much they could pursue. I understood, but it didn't make me feel better. Later that afternoon, I listed the camera on eBay instead. I added insurance, tracking, signature delivery, the whole package. The process took longer, and the fees chipped into my asking price, but I didn't care. I wasn't willing to gamble again. That night, I stared at the dark ceiling above Sarah's couch, listening to the hum of her fridge and the distant murmur of cars outside. I kept replaying it all. The message, the late-night meet, the movement near the Accord. The way my instincts had screamed even before I could articulate why. It was the empty police car that stuck with me most. For a second, I had believed someone was there, ready to protect me. But no one had been. It had just been luck. The illusion of safety was enough to scare them off.
That haunted me more than if the cruiser had been occupied. Since then, I've changed how I do things. I never meet buyers alone. I never meet after sunset. I always bring someone, always. I share my live location, and if anything feels remotely off, I walk away. No item is worth my safety. No amount of money can buy back the gut feeling you ignored. The camera was just an object, metal, glass, and memories. But the night I almost sold it reminded me that danger doesn't always arrive with a warning. It's often quiet, polite. It wears normal clothes and speaks with perfect grammar. It waits until you're isolated, until you've reasoned away your discomfort, and then it acts. If you are ever selling something valuable, please, please stay safe. Don't compromise. Don't be afraid of seeming rude or overly cautious. Bring someone, meet in daylight, trust your gut. Because sometimes it's not just about what you're selling, it's about what someone else is willing to take.